it's Justin. Thanks for joining. Today, I want to share some of my conversations recently with some colleagues around how sales teams work with their internal legal departments. So this topic comes up because you've got quotas, you've got goals to hit, and you've got contracts going out to customers all day long. Hopefully, sometimes customers come back with, I don't like this indemnification language, I don't like this choice of law, this venue, et cetera. It's these usual suspects, these key areas that customers focus on, or customer legal departments focus on. And you got to find a way where you don't send every one of these over to legal. So I am not an attorney. In fact, a disclaimer, I'm not an attorney. You need to talk to your legal department about anything that you think is legal advice or you need legal advice. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm saying here's a framework of how you might go about working with your internal legal department while focusing on scaling your team and your efforts to deliver on your number. So if you identify that there's these 3 or 4 different areas that always come up, maybe the same with you, maybe slightly different, but catalog these, understand what comes up all the time. There's a limits of liability, there's an indemnification clause. At Amazon, one of the things that came up with our teams all the time was, if you're a seller and you go on Amazon, you can do this today, go try to sell on Amazon, you're going to click through a lengthy agreement. And one of those parts of the agreement says that the content you provide, you're giving Amazon a perpetual transferable license to create derivative works, use it wherever they want forever, basically. And you're saying you have the right to give that to give that license over. Well, we were working with some enterprise customers at Amazon and we're like, hey, wait a minute, derivative works, that means you can take my likeness, my logos, etc., and you can put them anywhere you want. And so I'm going to talk about that in the sense of a fallback agreement. But that made sense for Amazon. It may be different for you, but it's usually limits of liability, indemnification, licenses, content, that sort of thing. Figure out what it is for you and understand what answers you normally give. Because probably today what happens is you see these language, indemnification, limits of liability, choice of law, venue, you send it over to legal. That's legal stuff. That's their department. I would argue this is your problem, because anything that inhibits you from hitting your number, from driving up productivity, from scaling your team, your organization, it necessarily needs to be your problem. You need to figure this out. You can't make this other people's problems. Otherwise, you're saying, if I miss my number, it's somebody else's fault and I didn't have any control. What kind of chief revenue officer, SVP, VP of sales are you going to be if it's always somebody else's problem in that regard? So here's what you can do. Once you've identified what these areas are, talk with your legal department. Say, hey, look, this comes up all the time. What are we comfortable with and under what situation, what circumstances? If it's only for contracts over $50,000 or only for contracts over $25,000 or whatever it is, figure out the guidelines that you want to play by, figure out the most common changes that you need to make, and get some fallback language, get some paragraphs that you as the sales leader or the executive, you can implement anytime that you approve it. So this is a scenario where your team comes to you, I've got this contract, you've coached your team, you've announced it in team meetings, you said under these circumstances, we're willing to do X, Y, and Z. And the customer comes back and says, here's the red line, here's the indemnification language, here's the choice of law or venue that we want, basically in their red lines. You've already got fallback language, so you can read what they want, look at yours, and come back and say, hey, let's meet in the middle. Here's what we can do. And you can put in place that paragraph very, very quickly. Legal already approves it. You got to document it. You got to save it in your contract storage system, in your CRM, and note it appropriately. But you have immediate access to solve that problem, to solve that roadblock on behalf of your customers and on behalf of your team. So get the language in the contract, replace it, or more commonly, what I see is, there's a standard online agreement. So you got a click through. You don't want to change it. It's a waste of time to constantly edit in DocuSign or whatever it is that you're using. So have them sign that. And in addition, load up your rider, your appendix, it'll say in there, legal will write the language in there that says, if there's any conflict between this document, this addendum, and the main terms and condition, this document controls. And on that document, it has those fallback paragraphs, that fallback language. And so when that paragraph conflicts with the one that's in the standard agreement, it controls and it replaces it. And the legal team, the customer will understand that. And so in that way, you can keep your normal processes. You don't have to do anything different. You have the fallback language pre-approved with legal, and you can move a lot faster. So think about that. If this type of stuff is helpful, like it, subscribe to this channel, and leave your comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk soon.